Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things.
Without the midichlorians, life could not exist, and we would have no knowledge of the Force.
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
Welcome to the Star Wars Brothers podcast, the inaugural episode. I'm Cliff Boyd, and I'm here with John Boyd and Drew Shepard.
All right.
How are you guys doing?
Awesome. Fantastic.
Right. Good. So I want to start out today by just kind of explaining what we plan on doing in this podcast, why it exists. Theoretically will exist, does not exist yet. We'll see how today goes. And then we'll just get right into talking about some Star Wars because that's what we love. About a year ago, been talking to my brother. We've been excited about all the Star Wars hype, the renewed interest in society towards Star Wars. And it got me wanting to go back through all of the Star Wars material of the past, which is pretty much an impossible task if you're going to go to try to do everything. But if you limit it to just what is now considered canon, because I guess at some point in 2014, I believe it was, Disney made a big cut and said, hey, everything before this is no longer canon except for the movies and the Clone Wars cartoon. And everything after this is all canon that's officially produced. So I thought, that's like 5 years worth of stuff. That's something that it's possible to actually catch up on and be up to date on everything Star Wars. And that just sounded like a really cool idea to me. Still a little bit of a daunting task because there's comics and books and shows and all of that. And I thought, well, maybe we could do it. Maybe we could do it together. Maybe me and John could get in there and go through all this stuff together and talk about it as we go through it. And maybe we can make a podcast about it. I threw the idea out there. We were kind of busy in our lives at the time, and it didn't really make a lot of sense for us to start doing that at the time. But it's always been in the back of my mind. So recently, I actually started watching through the Clone Wars cartoon and got about a season and a few episodes in and was enjoying it, but thought, I really wish I had somebody to talk to about this and just be excited about what's happening as I'm going through it with a person who I can just discuss everything with. Anyway, called my brother up. I think I'd finished an episode that day, and I called him up right after it ended, and I said, John, I'm watching the Star Wars Clone Wars cartoon. Do you want to do this podcast thing? And he said, sure. So that's why I'm here. So John, why are you here? Why do you want to do this podcast?
Of course, always been a Star Wars fan, for forever. And I too want to kind of get caught up on some of the things that I, probably, I don't know. I probably wouldn't stick to it if I didn't have somebody to kind of talk through with it because of life. And so just excited to kind of set this aside and then also get to meet somebody new and get to meet Andrew for the first time tonight on this. And just sounds awesome. Excited about it.
All right, Drew, why are you here?
Do I get my $20 if I say because you forced me to?
Forced is a strong word.
No, ever since I've got to know you, Cliff, we have really, connected, especially over Star Wars. For John, who doesn't know this, and for anyone who eventually listens to this doesn't know, my wife never saw Star Wars at all. She's now 24 years old, never seen Star Wars until this past year when we started watching in a somewhat order the different Star Wars films. And so just getting to see her reaction and getting to do it with a lot of friends, that was really enjoyable for me. And just, talking with people, especially Cliff and, just more people who are more knowledgeable in the Star Wars franchise than I discovered there was so much that I actually don't know. So I'm really excited to actually get some of that knowledge that you two have and just kind of talk about some different ideas. And like John said, I'm really excited to meet him too. So I'm going to be a good time.
I'm going to throw a disclaimer out there. We don't really have very much Star Wars knowledge. We have pretty much seen the movies and then just little bits and pieces of things besides that. Like I said, I watched through a season of the Clone Wars cartoon, And that's about it.
Played with
about
a lot
all
of
I've seen.
toys.
So
You
a lot of the toys.
I've played with a lot of the toys, Star Wars Legos, so I'm pretty much an expert.
Oh, well, there you go.
Video games over the years, that sort of thing. But we're definitely not experts here. But that's sort of the fun of it, is we're all experiencing this for the first time. And that's why I asked you, Drew, because I knew you hadn't seen any of the Clone Wars. Well, I know you've seen a little bit of it. You've watched, I think, a few more episodes than I have. But I know you didn't make it through season 2.
No.
And you weren't going chronologically when you did that. So that's pretty much where we're going to start here. And whether we go past the Clone Wars or not remains to be seen. We'll see what life has in store for us. But the main purpose is that of what we're doing right now is that over about the next 20 weeks, we're going to watch through the Clone Wars cartoon together. And I've put together a schedule for that. Amounts to anywhere from about 5 to 8 episodes a week. And then the way that that's going to be divided out is by episode arc. I found a really cool website that I wish I could credit. Maybe I will eventually at some point, or if we actually have anybody who ever listens to this, then I can find a way to point them to that website. Anyway, StarWars.com has all the episodes listed chronologically, but there's another website that has arranged those into their arcs. It's the same order, but they grouped it by episode arc. And so that's the way we're going to watch it, is arc at a time, where you've got 2 to 5 episodes that all tell a cohesive story within themselves. And I didn't want to stop in the middle of an arc week to week. So each week we're going to be talking about, usually probably about 2 or 3 different episode arcs that happen in the Clone Wars series until we finish it. Obviously, a new season just came out on Disney Plus, which is kind of exciting. And another reason why I was prompted to go ahead and start watching again, because it's been popping up on my Disney Plus feed as a recommended show to see. And so that's what we're going to do, is watch the Clone Wars cartoon. And each week we'll talk about it. And at the end of the episode, I'll mention what episodes we're going to watch for next week. Obviously, this first week's going to be the movie and a couple episodes, but I'll go over that at the end. Okay. For this episode, because we haven't watched or prepared anything to talk about as far as the Clone Wars cartoon is concerned, I want to start out just talking a little bit about why we are Star Wars fans, what we like about it. What are some of our earliest Star Wars memories? Drew, what's the earliest memory that you have of Star Wars?
The earliest memory I have of Star Wars is probably, when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, summer day camp, playing the Super Star Wars Empire Strikes Back for the SNES game.
Yes.
Playing Battle for Hoth through the snow caves, the AT-AT, the snow speeders. As frustrating as I'll get out, I could not beat that level, that game. It just drove me mad all summer, for an hour. Can't let the kids play video games all day in summer day camp. Whatever. So an hour, it drove me mad trying to beat it. But I had so much fun with the challenge and just, the action that went along with it. So I'd say that's probably my first really clear memory of Star Wars.
John, what about you? Earliest Star Wars memory?
Yeah, so I actually remember it pretty vividly. Living in Florida, I was probably in 2nd or 3rd grade when I first got introduced. And I believe I was homesick from school. And so when I was homesick, sometimes Mom would rent movies. Don't know if she ever did that for you, Cliff. Sorry. But she'd rent movies. And so just a couple of the Star Wars movies on VHS on our 13-inch TV, I think, that we probably played our Super Nintendo on as well. I don't remember which ones they were, but I remember putting them in that VHS player, that tape player, and watching through those 2 episodes, probably not even in the right order. But at that age, I was just like blown away by those Star Wars movies. And then, it caught on quick. That was 2nd or 3rd grade. And before, 5th, 6th grade, I had a bunch of the toys and I was crazy about it. So,
yeah. John, I think you were a lot bigger Star Wars fan than me growing up. I remember, it's weird. I don't really have a lot of very early memories of Star Wars. When we lived in Florida, that was like junior high for me? Yeah, those were like my junior high years in Florida. I don't really think I saw Star Wars or really knew much about it or paid much attention to it until junior high. And I remember you watching the movies and talking about them and just thinking, what in the world is this?
What a nerd.
And, no, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. Well, it might have been. But I remember being interested in it and just thinking, well, this is interesting. And I don't remember a whole lot about it. I probably watched an episode or two with you at some point. And it primed me up for episode 1, which I don't remember what grade that was. That was like probably 7th or 8th grade for me. And episode 1 came out when I was the target audience for it. I remember just being so excited about seeing Star Wars in a theater after having discovered these movies on these VHS tapes. And that was the thing. And John, well, you both probably remember when episode 1 came out. That was a huge deal in our generation. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest films ever, I think, at the time, at least. Y'all have any other Star Wars memories that you want to talk about?
Well, now that you bring up seeing episode 1, I remember when they re-released 4, 5, and 6 into the theaters.
Yeah,
going to see all those
right.
in the theaters, and so that was a pretty profound memory too. I don't remember who I went with or what theater I went to, but I remember going and being like, I get to see. Absolutely. This is a historic moment because it's in the theaters, and just remember thinking that.
Makes me wonder if maybe that was even the first time I saw them, because I really don't remember watching the VHSs. I might have seen them for the first time when they were re-released in theaters. It's hard for me to remember for sure. Mm-hmm. Now, I do remember playing Shadows of the Empire, similarly to your memory, Drew, of playing on the Super Nintendo. I know at some point I had a Star Wars game on Game Boy, and I remember playing that as well. I think it was just Super Star Wars for the Game Boy, probably a Game Boy port of the same game. We never really had a Super Nintendo until later on. But I remember it being in 6th grade and watching a VHS preview that somebody had brought to school on one of the classroom TVs of the Nintendo 64 that was coming out, and vividly remember watching that snowspeeder fly through Hoth on Shadows of the Empire and just thinking, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And I'm huge into video games. Both of you guys know that. I've got a collection of a bunch of old video games and just play probably way too many video games. I love them, but I've always loved them. And that's a big memory for me. I even remember, I think probably before that, John, one of our cousins was really into Star Wars, James. And I do remember playing on his computer Dark Forces, which was a first-person shooter Star Wars video game. So
he was into the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter as well.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and those may have been pretty early memories for me as well. So it's hard for me to put it all together.
Talking video games, I remember the one where I said I'm all in to the franchise was playing Battle for Naboo on my Jungle Green N64.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the coolest thing. You had that yellow N1 starfighter, and you were, going over the planet, but then you were up in space too, and you were on all sorts of speeders, just shooting droids with blasters, trying to outmaneuver the tanks and everything. And for whatever reason, that game just really resonated with me. I think it was around like 99, 2000, somewhere in there. And it was such an amazing game, I thought. It was, again, it was challenging to me. But to your point, Cliff, growing up, I was definitely more of a video gamer than I was a movie goer, movie watcher. So that's how I really connected with the franchise initially. Even when GameCube came out, what is it? The Rogue Leader? Was it? I think
the sequel to Rogue Squadron.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So that was a blast to play that one as well. Just kind of getting to fly in the X-Wing. Those were the games that really just made an impact and really, I guess, helped develop my love for Star Wars in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about our controversial topic for the week.
Oh, here we go.
Before this podcast, I asked Drew and John to make a list of their top 3 best Star Wars movies. And again, this is most of our exposure to Star Wars is through the films. So what are your top 3 Star Wars films? And then what are the your 3 least favorite films? I'm going to preface this and do a little disclaimer. I like all 11 films. All 11 of them. We're doing this podcast after the newest episode 9 came out, Rise of Skywalker. Is that what it's called again?
Yeah.
Is that right? Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, I think that's right. So we're doing this podcast after that came out. I like all of the Star Wars movies. And some of them I just like a lot less than others. And some of them I like a lot more than others. And so that's kind of where we're coming from. They are not all good movies, but they are all movies that I like. That's my hot take on Star Wars.
Very well said.
So I've been thinking about what format we should do here, and I didn't really finalize it because I was busy with getting everything set up for our first podcast ever and kind of fumbling through that. I think what we're going to do is start out with our bottom pick, the worst Star Wars movie of the 11. And here's what I want to do. We're gonna have one of us say it.
This might get ugly.
I want you to keep track. I want you to keep track on your list, because if that makes your list, then you're going to mention it as well. So we're all going to, if it's on anybody's list, then you can go ahead and say, hey, that is one of my bottom 3. Did y'all order your top 3 and bottom 3? Do you have like a 1, 2, 3?
I have mine.
I did. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't order them. I'm not really sure that I have those decisions all made. I probably do. I can probably ascribe an order to it. But
You can always change it.
When we mention the movie, so when I mention my worst film, Drew, if that's in your top 3, then you're going to go ahead and mention it then, instead of waiting until we get to your movies. And we'll just kind of go through until we've talked about them all. And then at the end, if there's anything else you want to say about the films, we can go ahead and do that as well. Maybe throw out some honorable mentions, or talk about movies that we didn't get a chance to discuss. So, all right. Drew, why don't you start and tell us what your bottom pick of the 11 is?
My bottom of the barrel pick. I already know what's going to happen here with this one.
Oh no!
I'm sorry. I'm just going to say I'm sorry, Cliff. My bottom of the barrel pick is The Phantom Menace.
No!
I so wanted to pick something else for you. But, okay, pod racing is amazing. I love the pod racing scene. Darth Maul is an interesting, enjoyable villain. There's Liam Neeson. I love Liam Neeson. It has so many things going for it. But every time Jar Jar Binks opens his mouth, I a little. I get it. To some people, he is funny, silly, like Goofy the character, Disney, Goofy. I mean, but to me, he was just annoying. I was like, God, just be quiet, hush, like keep your mouth shut. I don't know. He just didn't resonate as funny, silly with me. He was just more, almost an antagonist, stepping stone for every character and every main plot. So, and I don't know, something about the technology. Just because you have technology doesn't mean that you have to use it. I'm thinking about New Hope, 23 years prior. The way that it looked was so much more, I don't know, realistic, Star Wars, realistic. It was more realistic to me than some of the CGI effects in The Phantom Menace. So I get it. It was new. They had to try it. It was revolutionary. It was neat to see. But that's my pros and cons to Phantom Menace in my view.
Drew, you have picked as your bottom pick my number 2.
I knew it was going to be up there.
And this is where we vote.
It's not my number 1.
So this is where we vote like
I'm off the island already.
And let me explain why. I do love the pod racing scene. I I think the new characters that they introduce are really interesting. I like Jar Jar Binks. I think he's funny. He doesn't annoy me at all. I think he's hilarious. Now, I think the use of Jar Jar Binks becomes problematic as we move throughout the Star Wars universe. But in Episode 1, he's just a goofball, and he acts like a goofball. When they start treating him like he's a serious character later on, like he could actually be a senator. John, you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Come on, Jar Jar Binks has no place in the Senate in anything political. He ought to be a goofball that accidentally saves the day in some small way at most, which is what he does in Episode 1. And I actually really like that. Here's why I think Episode 1 resonates with me so much more than it does for most people, though. It came out, and I sort of mentioned this before, it came out at a time when I was the target audience for it. When Episode 1 came out, they made it for 7th graders. I was in 7th grade, or I don't remember, 7th or 8th grade, something like that. And I saw that movie in the theaters and was just blown away. The pod racing scene, all of the new starships, the CG like I'd never seen before. Animation just blew my mind. That lightsaber battle at the end, look, I know you go back and watch it and you just think, where even are they? This is ridiculous. What are these doors they keep closing on? It's all just so contrived. And I recognize that, but I love it. I just think it's so good. And I admit that much of my love for it is nostalgia. But even I don't remember his name, the Jar Jar leader who does that thing. That's so stupid. And I think it's hilarious. I think it's funny and charming and good. So.
And with that statement right there, we just lost whatever viewer or listener we had.
Yeah, I know. They're like, delete.
No.
Not the Star Wars podcast for me.
Well, John, any comments on that?
Yeah, so I do like Phantom Menace. It's not in my top 3. It's somewhere in the middle, but for much the same reasons. It's the feelings that I have remembering that Star Wars is back and going to see that and being so excited about that. And I think that's probably part of the reason I like it so much is those memories I have from that time. And that's when I really started like, I need Star Wars toys for Christmas. And so I had a big yellow Naboo Starfighter, and I had a pod racer, and so that's why I probably like it. And the lightsaber battle, the double-sided lightsaber. I mean, that was every kid wanted a double-sided lightsaber at that point. And so
I still do. Probably kill myself with it.
Right. Probably not a good idea. But it's somewhere in the middle for me.
It spawned one of the greatest video games on the Nintendo 64, Star Wars Racer. Now, you mentioned Battle for Naboo, but man, Star Wars Racer was a game that I played so much growing up on the Nintendo 64.
Was that just a pod racing game?
Yeah, just pod racing. You can pick your characters, and then there were like tour circuits all over the galaxy. I was always Anakin. I don't know why. I just liked playing as Anakin. He filled up his little tiny podcast compared to all the rest of them. And I think I kind of liked that the podcast took up less room on screen so I could see more of the road that I was driving on. But anyway, I remember I was able to get first in every race in that game. And I'm like everything except for there was one race that I couldn't beat, and I never finished it. But everything else in that game, as far as I know, who knows, there's probably stuff I missed, but just about everything else in that game I played to death. Okay, John, what's your bottom pick?
Oh, my bottom pick. All right. Bottom of the barrel is Solo.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm shocked. Are you serious?
Yes.
I'm shocked.
Again, no. Let me preface, or I should have prefaced. I don't hate any of the Star Wars movies. I find enjoyment out of all of them. But Solo, I didn't like the droid rights,
Okay, yeah.
and all that. I really didn't. It was not the actor. I get that they can't have Harrison Ford be in the movie, but the fact that he was not the Han Solo that I pictured as a younger Han Solo. He wasn't gruff enough. He wasn't rude enough. He was kind of Aladdin-ish to me, but he was not the, I'm just going to blast my way out of here and be rude to you the whole time and then still get the girl type of person that I had pictured.
What do you think about Solo, Drew?
For me, it's somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Honestly, I had forgotten about that one part, the droid's rights. Now that you say that, John, I remember that. I was like, okay. But I don't know. It was action-packed. I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people, it's sort of their bottom of the barrel too, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. The train scene, setting the bombs and the droids, trying to fight them off the train, and seeing Darth Maul. Spoiler alert! Who've not ever seen that?
It was a weird throw in. Weird throw in at the end there.
It was nice to see him. And I forget what's the lady's name? Who sort of was, I don't know, more or less the bad lady, good.
Yeah, the lady from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So, I thought her character was interesting. There were a couple of good blaster scenes. So, but yeah, sort of in the middle somewhere for me.
Okay. I'm with you. Toward the top, definitely top half for me. Not a top 3. But I thought it was a 10 out of 10. When I saw it, I was blown away. I had very, very low expectations because it seemed like nobody really liked it that much. I didn't even see it in the theaters when it was out. It was at a time of my life I really wasn't going to the theaters very much anyway. But when I saw it, it came out on one of the streaming services, I think, and I eventually saw it and was blown away. Just thought this is an awesome movie, and I don't really get what people are talking about. So many great callbacks. We probably should have said at the beginning of this, if you haven't seen any Star Wars movies, prepare to be spoiled on them all. I loved the end, just fist pump, cheer out loud when he just shoots the guy before he even has a chance to start to draw. It was like Disney's definitive stance on who shot first in episode 4. It was like, we're going to establish Han Solo as the kind of person who has the character who would just shoot even if he wasn't drawn on. And I really liked that. I really appreciated that. I'm with you on the droid rights thing. That was kind of dumb, but I thought it did create some humorous elements, and Star Wars always kind of has ridiculous over the top things like that in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you there, but I loved it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's your bottom pick, because I thought for sure your bottom pick would be the same as mine. And you know what's coming.
We're just disappointed in John, I tell you.
I'm not disappointed. It's okay.
At least it's not episode 1. So
That's right. Episode 2 is my bottom pick.
Your bottom.
And I think I'm with the majority on that one.
Second from the bottom for me.
Third from the bottom for me.
Okay. All right. I think that's a pretty universal opinion. I doubt that's in anybody's top 3. I'm sure somebody, but I can't imagine that it's very high on many people's lists. Although, hey, I'm the guy who has episode 1 as number 2. So the Attack of the Clones, as excited as I was, as thrilled as episode 1 got me, episode 2 killed it. I remember after seeing episode 2, when episode 3 come out, I was like, maybe I'll see it. And I was at a different stage of life. I was in high school by that point, and Star Wars played a little bit different role in my life. I was still into it, but and wasn't ashamed of it at all. But it was still just not my focus at that point in my life. But part of that was because of episode 2, because I remember seeing it and not being a movie critic, being an expert, and just thinking, this acting is horrible.
Yeah. Yes.
I could have done better than that. It's so bad.
Yes.
The acting in it is terrible. I don't know if there's any good performances in it. Even there's good actors and actresses in episode 2. and they do a horrible job. Every line just sounds like it should have been in like a first grader's play. It's bad. It's horrible. And for that's the biggest reason it's so low. I love the Yoda part.
Yeah.
There's some good things about it. I think it sets up the story for episode 3 really well and establishes some interesting things for what will eventually become the Clone Wars cartoon. But it just really fell flat for me on the acting department, and I had a hard time getting over that. I remember it came out around the same time as Lord of the Rings, and I love Lord of the Rings. Those are still probably my favorite movies of all time. And I remember watching all of the documentaries on the Lord of the Rings movies after I bought the DVDs. I would buy the extended version and then watch through everything, all of the bonus features, and was just blown away by how they would just build a whole city to film a scene. And then you would watch Star Wars and everything seemed so flat and unrealistic. And the CG was beautiful, but the actors were just in front of blue screens. They didn't have anything real to latch onto. It was just like they were sitting in a room reading the script in costume. And I think that's part of why it suffered.
The acting was so bad. I remember the word I would describe is not bad, but it was agony watching Anakin and Padme go back and forth there.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it was the last time we watched it as a group. It was just too much. I was like, no, I can't handle this.
It's like comfortable. It's like you watch it with people and you kind of feel like,
yes, it's like these are horrible decisions. Like you're making to everybody. Like why is this happening?
Yeah.
Maybe best with subtitles when the volume off.
Yes.
It might be fun to watch it in a foreign language with subtitles, English subtitles on. And maybe it'd be better that way.
Oh, Ami-san.
Japanese. Yeah.
I mean, you're right. The Yoda battle was amazing. The lightsaber battle was great. It was fun to see Jango and Boba Fett. The Count Dooku. It was enjoyable. But to your point, probably the Kaminoites, the people of Kamino, whatever they're called. That was probably the most genuine acting in the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. John, give me your second from the bottom.
Second from the bottom is...
Wait, have we gotten your bottom yet? Did we do your bottom? Yeah, we did. That was so...
Yeah, you tried to forget about
from the bottom. I'm trying not to remember
that.
Second from the bottom is episode 2.
Episode 2. Okay, well, give us your. Well, let's see. We need to do all the second from the bottoms. Have you done your second from the bottom yet, Drew?
No, I've not yet.
Okay, what is it?
Bottom for me, 10th place, Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
So
yeah, I get it.
I don't know. It didn't latch on as believable in the Star Wars universe for me. Palpatine has been here all along, but we didn't know. Now we're finding out there was no evidence to really suggest he was here. But he's here all of a sudden. Yeah, I mean, he's a bad guy. So it just was a surprise that, I was initially excited, but just the way it was delivered was, the way he was in that floating wheelchair crane, like suspension thing. Like, why? The betrayal of General Hux for, Kylo Ren and then his demise, that just seemed a little far-fetched. But the most far-fetched thing, and that's probably what sealed it for me at the end, I was like trying to go, I was like, okay, this is better than I'm thinking. I'm not going to like this. The ending will make up for it. And then Finn rides out in these spaces on a ship, and I was like, no, I'm done. Nope. I quit.
They were in an atmosphere. They were in the atmosphere of the planet. They were in the middle of space.
You're rising really slowly.
Yeah.
Why not go faster?
Yeah.
Drew,
no, just stop.
Drew, this is also my second from the bottom.
Okay.
For a lot of the same reasons. I loved the movie. I saw it twice and loved it both times. It has some problems, and in and of itself, I'm thinking maybe if we really get deep into some of the extra stuff, if we start reading novels and comics, maybe that'll help it. Maybe that'll give us some information to latch on to make things more believable. But I knew it was a problem when the movie started and they were like, Palpatine's just been broadcasting this message. I was like, what is that? What do you mean he's been broadcasting a message out to the galaxy? Is this is the first we're hearing of it? Like, this is how you're going to introduce that? No, actually, it's not. That wasn't the first that we heard about it. Because if you play Fortnite and had logged on to Fortnite at the time when they had said they were going to do like a sneak peek. And honestly, if I had known, I thought it was going to be like a clip of the movie or something. I didn't want to be spoiled on the movie. I don't even watch trailers before these movies come out. I like to be completely unspoiled before I see them. So I was like, I'm not touching that. But I don't play Fortnite. But I would have created a Fortnite account and logged in if I knew it was actually going to be a part of canon and be a real movie tie-in. Just what a silly thing. And if y'all don't know, or if listeners don't know, before the movie came out, if you logged into Fortnite when they said as part of their promotional material, there was a message from Palpatine, like playing over a loudspeaker at a certain time. And that's what the reference was to in the opening crawl. It's like, what? And I knew from that point, we were going to have some problems. But I loved the movie. Just absolutely loved it. Dropped a tear too when I was watching it. Thought the performances of Daisy Ridley and what's his name? Kylo Ren. Help me.
Adam Driver.
Yep. Yeah, Adam Driver. Man, what great performances. They really carried it for me. But there was a lot of story stuff that just felt so unsubstantiated.
Agreed.
Like them being a dyad in the Force or something and being connected. Just made I didn't have any connection to that. I didn't even know what they were talking about. And even on a rewatch, I thought, what are they even saying? I don't even know what this means. John, I think you probably like this movie the best out of the three of us. And I do like it, but
right. Yeah, it's not in my top three. It's not in my bottom three. And I actually did really like it. I like it. I felt like it kind of redeemed the previous movie.
Oh yeah. Well, I agree with you there. And we have talked about that.
Right. And I was a little worried that it wouldn't, and that they'd continue down the path that took us, which I even liked that one, but it had more problems to me than Rise. But no, I liked it. I liked the, I don't know, just anytime I see those classic ships flying around, it just does something for the memories of playing with all these Star Wars toys and watching these. And it I don't know what to say. It wasn't my favorite, but definitely don't have a problem with it like everyone else I talked to.
I think the biggest problem that I had, and there's a lot that I have to say about it because it's pretty fresh on my mind, but the biggest problem that I had was at the end with all of the, that Palpatine had secretly built this huge fleet of ships and they all just like crash out of the planet ground. Like, did he bury them? Like, what are they doing? They're underground and they just crash out of the ground. Like, what's even happening? It felt like they just kept having to one up. It was like, even with The Force Awakens, this problem I had with Force Awakens too. It was like, you thought the Death Star was bad. The Death Star's only this big. Look at the Starkiller base. You can fit like 20 Death Stars in there. It's just like, what? They had to build it out of a planet. It's like, what are you talking about? Okay, I'll go with it. That's fine. And then it was like, oh, you thought that was bad. You thought the multi-shot planet killer was bad. What if every Star Destroyer could destroy a planet? It felt kind of like an Endgame, and I loved Avengers Endgame too, but it felt like why do we have to keep one-upping it? Why does this have to be bigger than anything before it? I'm hoping they're through with it now. If they try to one-up that, forget about it.
Each stormtrooper has a Death Star powered weapon.
Every stormtrooper can destroy a planet.
We call it the black hole.
It's the only way they can do it. There's nothing left to do. So that, yeah. Okay.
So, and I've also heard and seen a little bit of some of the books that they kind of came out with to explain some of that stuff. That makes me more okay with the ships coming out of the planet and all that. So.
Yeah, and I agree. J.J. Abrams' homage to Rian Johnson's work was pretty impressive to me. A lot of people thought that he discarded it, and I felt the opposite. That whole thing where Palpatine was connecting them and they were communicating, they just kept building on that and building on that and building on that, and did a really cool thing at the end with that lightsaber handoff. That was all from what Rian Johnson had done, just progressively building on it. And it was a really, really cool moment. So, all right. Has everybody done their bottom two?
Bottom two, yes.
Okay.
I've done all my bottom three.
You've done all three. Okay. So you've done your bottom two. John, what's your third from the bottom?
3.
Okay. Me too. We're both on the same page there. Drew?
Revenge of the
Episode 3?
Sith?
Yeah.
No, that's my second favorite.
Yeah, I know. I knew you loved that one.
Yeah, I like that one. I'll let y'all talk about it first if you want, or I can go.
So episode 3.
Why is it so low for you?
Well, the acting is bad, and really, that 2 and 3. It's hard for me to pick which one I dislike more. So they're kind of down there together. Back to the discussing of the whole Jar Jar thing, and where Jar Jar is a senator, and and then just to defeat one of the most powerful Jedis, as long as you got the high ground, you're okay.
You're right. What a silly moment.
All I got to do is stand just a couple feet higher, and I will cut off their legs. But
it was a callback to episode 1, right? Where he used that move against Darth Maul to kill him. And then when Anakin tried to use his move against him, he was like, no, you can't do it. I know what you're going to try.
I have the high ground. I have the high ground.
Right. It comes across so ridiculous. But,
right.
Acting for me as well is a big negative. So what else about it, John?
CGI was bad.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Just all that. But I'm still glad it's a movie. I still enjoy watching it to this day. And I remember when I was younger, seeing it for the first time and being like, wow, that was an awesome movie. And I don't really understand what happened. And so that's there's just so much going on right there. I guess that's kind of in a nutshell.
So I went back and forth between this and episode 9, because as which place they were going to take. And I think what made this one just edge it out is that it has some really cool plot development. As bad as the acting is, and that is one thing that I think Rise of Skywalker really does much better. Has some great performances in it. But the Order 66, such a cool moment. I love that Palpatine execute Order 66 and they just kill all the Jedi. Man, what a cool, just hard moment. And it's so neat to see them in that moment jump between all the different planets you've never seen before, planets that they conceived of just for that one moment. And they created this whole, world. And George Lucas actually made them develop backstories for these planets if they were going to show them. It wouldn't just like develop a random world. It was like, every place that we're going to go to for the Order 66 scene is going to have some history to it. And I just think there's a lot of depth there. I'd actually disagree about the CG. I think the CG is really cool. I think the opening scene with the big star battle that's going on is very impressive and really fun to watch. I think the biggest problem that I have with it is the acting again. And that is a big problem. The acting is probably the single reason why it's not much higher. Again, even your good actors and actresses are doing a bad job in that movie. and that's I don't think it's their fault. I think it's probably someone else to blame that we could talk about. But anyway, Drew, why do you like it?
So I completely agree with what you all are saying about the acting. 100%. Hayden Christensen's performance as Skywalker was terrible. Obi-Wan, you know what you did. I mean, it was bad. I fully throw that out there and admit that, concede that completely. I think a lot of it does come down for me to what you said, Cliff, about Phantom Menace. A lot of it was nostalgia for me. And so that was the one where so much of it just connected. By that time, I had seen 4, 5, 6, 1 and 2. But just the connection of 3 to say, and again, this was part of that time in my life when, it became my mind was developing more. It actually made sense, the connections of, oh, I understand now the plot devices that George Lucas used in 4, 5, and 6, why this is important, what's happening here, the subtleties that were taking place, the deeper meanings that weren't said, but you could see and you understood because you knew what was coming in 4, 5, and 6. So again, part of it was just nostalgia, the time in my life. I mean, I remember, this is how much of a nerd I am. I went to 7-Eleven and got that Darth Dew Slurpee. If you even remember that.
No.
It was purple. They had a Darth Vader lid with his like head. It was a black lid on top of it.
Do you still have that?
I wish I did, man. I wish I did. But I remember I went to 7-Eleven every day for 2 or 3 weeks just to get one of those because I loved the movie so much. It was sour grape, and I hated sour grape, but I loved the movie, so I was.
So cool. How old were you when that came out, Drew? What grade was that for you?
Probably 10th grade. Probably around 10th grade.
Okay.
Padme dies, but not before Luke and Leia, and I understood the importance of why Luke and Leia were important because of 4, 5, and 6. The challenge that Anakin faced, it was just interesting to me of, okay, I know what I want to do, but I don't know how to get there, so I'm going to go this way, even though I know it's not the right way. I'm going to kill a bunch of little kids, which is really bad, but I still am trying to do it for the right reasons. So it was just an emotional roller coaster for me, and a lot of nostalgia for that time in my life. So I really enjoyed that one for that reason. Okay.
Well, the good news is no one's bottom 3 contained anyone else's number 1. Okay. John, what's your number 3 Star Wars film?
My number 3, so The Force Awakens.
Okay. All right.
Oh.
I'm surprised by that too.
So
why is The Force Awakens so high for you?
So The Force Awakens is so high for me because of, again, that feeling I got seeing it. I remember when Millennium Falcon is first picked up and we're going across the planet and the TIE fighters are after it. And it's doing these awesome moves in the air that we've always known it could do. But because of technology, we've never been able to see it do that. It was just so I remember being on the edge of my seat, being like, this is amazing. This is the Millennium Falcon. This is my childhood again. And I really think that's what does it in the reintroduction of characters. I just wanted to audibly cheer in the theaters at times. And so, I mean, I know it gets a lot of flack, like all the new ones do, but it's my number 3.
Okay. Drew, did that make your list at all?
It didn't, but I agree with everything you said. It's right in the middle for me. I loved it. When I saw it, I was on the edge of my seat too. I was like, oh man, it is back, baby. Them running through the market with the blasters and then the fighters coming in, shooting down. Just that scene was so amazing to me. I was like, I knew right then, I was like, I'm going to enjoy this. They did this right. So
it was also the first movie that I was first Star Wars movie that I was able to go to with my son.
Oh, yeah.
That's
so
cool.
It was like, he had seen Star Wars, but for him to be able to go with me and him be on the edge of his seat. And then towards the end of the movie, he's like, Dad, I got to pee. And I'm like, no, you don't. We're going to sit here and finish it.
What do you think we brought the bottle for?
But I remember seeing it with him. That's when I was living in Northwest Arkansas and seeing it with him in the theater and just, able to, that was awesome to be able to take my son to a Star Wars movie.
Cool. I also love that. It's not on my list either, but I agree with most of what you said. There's some silliness in it. The Starkiller base, again, I think is silly. Just like a multi-shot Death Star. It's like, we built the Death Star. Now we built the Death Star with a fully operational shield during the building process. Now we've converted a whole planet, and then leading all the way up to, the ridiculousness that is in Episode 9. But I think, it's a very, very cool, nostalgic, fun experience. It was the Star Wars film that did prompt me to never watch another Star Wars trailer, because so many of the cool scenes and moments I felt like were spoiled because I had already seen them in a trailer. Some of those just shots were so iconic and epic, and I wished that I was seeing it for the first time in the theater. And so from that movie on, I've never watched the Star Wars trailer prior to seeing the film in theater. And when it comes on and I'm in another movie, I literally plug my ears and hum to myself, close my eyes, and just hear like the tinge of an epic score in the background, and make my friends embarrassed to be with me. But that's true. Most of my friends on a regular basis anyway. So,
We're your only friends.
yeah, it's a great one. Where did Rey learn to fly like that?
So that's I can explain it.
Okay, that's the problem I have with it.
So she's very force sensitive. Where did Anakin learn to pilot a pod racer the way he did? The only human that
Never
could do
won a pod race though.
Don't say never, because he did.
Yeah, okay, he did eventually. You're right. You're right. Yeah, okay, all right. That's
and people, you see no other humans piloting a pod. It's because they're so force sensitive that they can basically jump right into.
You can just be a pilot. If you have force sensitivity, you're just an awesome pilot.
You are.
So does Poe. Is Poe force sensitive? Do you think?
He may be.
Oh, okay.
The going theory is that John Boyega is. I can't remember his name. What's his name?
Yep.
That's because that's what he wanted to tell Rey when they were sinking in the sinking sand.
Yeah.
That happened to lead him to the ridiculous snake monster. What a stupid scene. I hate that. That's another reason I hated it. No, I didn't hate the movie. I hated that scene though. That was stupid. But
Luke was
the force healing I liked.
Luke was a good pilot.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Luke destroyed a Death Star. He just jumped.
Okay, all right. That's
if you're that force sensitive, you can fly anything.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that one. That's fair. All right, Drew. What's your number 3? Have we done it yet?
No, not yet. My number 3 is Rogue One.
Okay, that is also my number 3.
Oh, nice.
And your number 2.
Right.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 2.
If it weren't for nostalgia, it would be my number 1. I think if I saw all those movies for the first time right now, it would be my number 1 film.
Mm.
But I have nostalgia playing into my top 2. It's part of why it's so good.
Yeah.
We don't need happy endings all the time.
That's so true. I mean, that's it. It's that scene with Darth Vader at the very end. Ooh, that is by far the coolest scene of Darth Vader's, I think,
absolutely
anywhere.
Yes.
So
yeah, I agree with that.
And how it flows right into 4.
Perfect. Yeah.
And for me, so I don't like Episode 3. Another reason, and it's part of the reason I like Rogue One, is because I felt like there was such a gap, and there was a time gap, but I felt like it was such a different world from 3 to 4. And I remember going and wanting to see more connections, wanting to start to see the ships be the same, wanting to see that. And I didn't get that, but with Rogue One, it was all there. It was everything that I wanted to start seeing in Episode 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the tragedy of it. I love that not a single person lives. They can't do anything else with those characters. They're all dead. Yeah. And a lot of movies aren't brave enough to do that now. Once they've invested and established a really big character, they want to market it to the fullest. And so a lot of movies nowadays, you just know that the main characters aren't going to die. Even in Star Wars movies, you just know they're not going to die. Because they need to be able to keep using them and in the even in the expanding canon. But the fact that they go into Rogue One and just have it in their minds to wipe everybody out is so good.
No one's ever really dead.
That is true. That is true. As I hear, we will discover as we watch the Clone Wars. We know a little bit about what's coming.
As our friend Palpatine showed us. I mean,
that's right.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So we've done anything else on Rogue One before we leave it? John, you're number 2. That's really high.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think I'm trying to figure out what's left. I know I have done my 2 and 3. John, have you done your number 3?
Yes, Force Awakens.
Force Awakens is your number 3, and
Force
then
Awakens, Rogue One.
Rogue One was your number 3, Drew.
Mhm.
We've done John's number 2. We've done my number 2. We've done your number 2, right, Drew?
Right? Yeah.
Do you know what I'm realizing right now? We have not discussed any of the films from the original trilogy yet.
Will we now?
Yet.
None of them. None of them. That means for all 3 of us, at most, only one of them is getting into our top 3. Should we just cancel the podcast? I think people are going to tar and feather us. Maybe we need to re-record it without our real names in it.
That's right.
All right, John, let's start with you. What's your number 1 Star Wars?
My number 1 Star Wars movie is Episode 6.
Okay, Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yes, and like the same reasons I've liked all the others, and it's nostalgia. It is how awesome all that felt to me when I was a kid, and then getting the redemption of Vader there at the end, and it's even cooler to me now seeing the path that he's taken through the other movies and just how evil he really is. Until the very end, he changes. In the very end, he redeems it all, and I just love it. I like the Luke in all black with a green lightsaber. Of course, when that came out, that's the lightsaber I want. I want the green lightsaber. And in his the whole scene where he's watching the fleet of ships get destroyed while he's standing there with Vader and the Emperor. It's just it's the peak of the movies for me. All the movies right there. I love the speeders.
Awesome.
The speeders on
yes,
the Ewoks and that whole Moon of Endor scene.
Do you think it should have been Wookiees, or do you think the Ewoks was a good decision?
No, I like the Ewoks. I do.
Okay, me too.
And I like the and the Ewok movie, Cliff. That Drew, I don't know if you've seen it.
Not canon.
Not canon, but
there's 2 of them. Did you know there's 2 of them, John?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've only seen one. I've only seen the second one, the one with the giant and the cave and the cage. That's the only one I've seen.
But I like those because I like Return of the Jedi, and I just think that's so cool. And I like the. I'm glad they weren't Wookiees. Wookiees would have been too. Honestly, you have a forest full of Wookiees against stormtroopers that can't.
Yeah, and the stormtroopers don't stand a chance.
Of course, they're just going to rip them to pieces. But these little underdog Ewoks, with the help of a small part of the rebellion, able to really change history in the galaxy is I love it. Everything about it.
I love how you love the Ewoks, John. I'm so glad. That seems to be such a divisive issue. People either love or hate the Ewoks, it seems. And I think they are a great plot tool for that movie.
That's a very nice way to say it, Drew.
I know all creatures have rights, but they're a good plot tool.
I think the Ewoks are great.
Except Gungans. Gungans don't have rights. So
you mentioned some really iconic scenes, and that one is, you make me question my top 3, because Return of the Jedi, for a long time, growing up, it was my number 1. When it was just the original trilogy, and that was all we had, I remember thinking Return of the Jedi was the coolest. And part of that was just because it does become like that epic end scene where you have so many TIE fighters. It seemed like at the time there was just a swarm of TIE fighters flying through the sky, tearing up the rebels. And that final battle was super cool. It's a great one. Great pick.
Vader's decision, you could see how not even a word, it just turns his head, and looks at Luke, and then because you've built up to that point, the dilemma, and what he's trying to go through and what he's trying to work out, and the only one way to do it. So
And
So
then
I'm gonna go ahead.
and freeing Han, I love that scene. And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
killing Jabba, taking him down with all those people on the little, I don't know what it was, that little speeder going over the sand, in the Sarlacc pit, and then of course the fate of Boba, everything. Just
A little anticlimactic on Boba Fett, in my opinion. So
amazing that he's become such the loved character that he has.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Based off of his very little screen time.
Yes.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I could never figure out in school why some people really gravitated to him, and I could never figure out why. But.
It's the jetpack. I mean,
He's cool. He's like a cowboy. He's a very cowboyish character.
I mean, when episode 2
Renegade.
came out, I was like, oh, okay, well, now I see why you might like him, but yeah.
How about that intro music number in the special edition, though? I mean, that takes it down at least a notch for me. It's probably why it's not in my top 3.
yeah,
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad before we had that CG creature that was pasted over the top of all those scenes, and just one of the probably the worst scene in Star Wars, I would say. I hate sand. I'll take I hate sand over that scene any day. Any day. I hate watching that thing. There's not much of Star Wars that I hate. I hate that scene. So I want to mention this. You mentioned earlier in the podcast that we watched through all of the movies with your wife, Drew, who had never seen any of them before.
Yeah.
And you entrusted me. I remember you and I went back and forth. I said, hey, I want you to hear me out. Here's the order I think we should do it in. And so here's what we did. She had said she'd seen some Star Wars before and just got bored with it and wasn't that interested. And you'd never been able to get her to watch any. And it was really my wife saying, I'll watch them with you.
Right.
That finally made her come around. But the order that we used was we started with episode 4. And I feel like you kind of have to start with episode 4. But then we went back and did Rogue One. And the reason why we did that was because it is a very modern movie that doesn't necessarily have the silliness of the others. And I thought if anything could draw somebody who had been bored and thought Star Wars was a little bit silly and unattractive before, if anything can draw a person into it, I felt like it was Rogue One. And I think we were right.
She cried.
Your wife is very expressive, and
Yes.
she was definitely very expressive at the end of Rogue One, as everyone was, taken out one by one. So we did that, the prequel to episode 4. Then we did episode 5, and then we stopped and did the prequel trilogy because of the reverence that I have. The reason why I proposed that was because of the reverence that I have for Return of the Jedi. My idea was that's the culmination. That's where it all leads to. We're going to see Darth Vader's descent into evil right before we see him come around and redeem himself and have that internal struggle. So great pick. All right, Drew, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. All right. Why?
There is so much action in that movie. From opening the movie with Luke being attacked by a Wampa, the rebels being essentially smoked out, blown out of their secret base by the Empire, Darth Vader being revealed as Luke's father, Luke getting his hand cut off. Oh, wait, we can put it back on. Han Solo being frozen in carbonite. There was just so many memorable scenes in that one for me. There was, it was action packed. It just made so much sense to me how they framed everything and worked everything in the sequence of it. And when I look back at Star Wars, those are the memories that I usually associate with Star Wars the most, those that I just mentioned. So for that reason, it is my number 1.
Okay. It's down there for me. It's not bottom 3, but it's definitely bottom half for me. And I know that's an unpopular opinion. I just think it's one of the more boring Star Wars movies. Not a lot seems to happen. There's some great iconic stuff. And I realize when you see that stuff for the first time, it can be pretty huge. Like the reveal of Darth Vader as Luke's father, and even Yoda. When you first meet Yoda, you're like, who's this dude? Who's this funny Muppet on this? And then you eventually find out that he's a Jedi. It's like, what? He is? And that's a moment. I guess just on subsequent watches, I watch that movie and I get a little bored. And I love the opening scene, but after that, I just feel like not enough happens in the movie to really push it toward the top for me. It's a lot of people's number one. I definitely respect it, and I do love it. But
yeah, that's
my
fine.
number one.
It is.
John, do you have anything to say about?
Yeah, so it's got some really cool. The whole Hoth planet is what makes it a great movie for me.
Sure.
And I love those scenes, the whole Hoth thing. And really, it's a pretty small part of the movie.
Mhm.
And then after that, it does. I do see where it does kind of get slow. But then the whole betrayal of getting Han Solo and Carbonite, it kind of starts to peak again and sets you up really good for my favorite, Return of the Jedi. But the drew a blank. Oh, the whole snow Hoth scene with the tow cable, which has been in every Star Wars game just about that you can think of. Those are the scenes that it's probably, it's not in the top, of course, but it's close for me.
Okay. We are pushing the amount of time that I asked y'all to commit to this, so I'm going to go ahead and say my number one, and we'll talk about it briefly before we close it out, and I give you a little preview for what's coming up next week. My number one is obviously, since I haven't said it, I think going to be pretty obvious to everybody, and that is Episode 4 is my number one. It's kind of neat that 4, 5, and 6 are our number ones, but not any of the same one. I love the way Episode 4 starts. Now, a lot of people think Episode 4 is slow. What I said about Empire Strikes Back, a lot of people, but I think that is the genius of it. The fact that, and this is something that was done very intentionally. And Lucas has, discussed this. He's had his problems as a director later on, but man, I really think he struck gold with his idea here. And that is that we're gonna explore this huge space opera in a society that isn't really super excited about that sort of thing. And we're going to do it from the perspective of these two robots. I mean, that's really what the movie is about. It's about R2-D2 and C-3PO. They're on that ship at the beginning. They get deployed onto this desert planet, and they just wander around in the desert for a while, and they start to come across different people. And that movie really follows R2-D2 and C-3PO, and we see the beginning of the Star Wars franchise from their perspective. And I know eventually it starts to really transition away from a focus on them into the main characters of the movie. But that opener is, I just think, one of the greatest things in film ever. And I think it took a lot of courage to do, to create a movie that would take that kind of approach. And I just love it. Every time I see it, I just think this is perfectly paced. And I love the way that it builds on itself. And that was one of the reasons why I feel like you have to watch it first, because it takes you from this, again, you get the droids, but you also get Luke Skywalker being introduced as just a farm boy. And he sort of slowly, finds himself falling into this huge galaxy-wide conflict, but it happens very gradually throughout the film. And that's why it's my favorite, is because of the way and the pacing of the plot, the way the plot progresses and the way that it's paced out, and the way that we go from very unimportant figures to the destruction of the Death Star, which was the major threat to the galaxy.
No, you're right. I mean, the climax is amazing, how they slowly builds, and it gets more interesting, absolutely, as it gets further along in the film with the destruction, of the Death Star at the very end. And I agree with everything you said there, honestly. It's up there, it's in the middle for me.
Luke is really whiny. She's sticking to pick some power converters.
John, I remember watching. You remember Thumb Wars? Watching Thumb Wars with me?
Yeah.
And they just made Luke the most whiny character in that.
And it wasn't far from the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, really, yes. One of the Star Wars greats, obviously, Episode 4 started it all. I will say that there's kind of like a fan edition that somebody has made to that one that I recommend watching. It's Star Wars SC-38 reimagined.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
And it is the lightsaber battle at the end with Obi-Wan, and that part of what I don't like about Episode 4 is how anticlimactic that lightsaber battle kind of was.
Yeah,
they hadn't figured that out yet.
No, there was no real even fight. It was like,
that's right. Yeah,
get away.
Just whacking sticks together. That's right. Yeah,
right. And then he gave up, and then that
they ran out of budget. They couldn't hire a stunt coordinator for that scene. You know, it's like just kind of.
yeah. It was like, well, we don't want to accidentally hit each other. And then, but that reimagined version, I love that, and so I that kind of fills in what was lacking in the actual movie for me. And then
I get that.
Yeah, and then it is kind of interesting that Luke's aunt and uncle die. They are killed by stormtroopers. They raise him, and he's like, "Guess I'll go hang out with old Ben." And then old Ben dies, and he can't function. And he's so upset that Obi-Wan Kenobi's dead, and not that his adoptive parents are. And, not that it ruins anything for me. Just with his whininess, and it's like, Luke, where's your priorities?
Well, they died, but I get to leave the planet. So
right.
I'm good with
it. Go to the Tashi station whenever I want. So,
now I'm curious for you, Cliff. I'm curious for you. Is your decision for A New Hope to be your number one influenced at all by The Princess, the Scoundrel, and The Farm Boy?
No, but it is a good book.
Because I will say that it definitely increased it in my eyes after I listened to that. Full disclosure, I don't read hardly. That was an audio book.
Yeah.
I listened to.
Same here. Same.
Getting the story that happened between the different events in Episode 4 from their perspectives, that definitely brought it more to life for me. And then those moments where it was a little bit slower in the beginning. That sort of came back to increase my love of Episode 4 even more, just because I had more background. Even though it wasn't in the movie, I had it in my head from the audiobooks the last time I watched it. And so that definitely brought a little bit more of life to it for me.
Yeah, and the you mentioned about him not really being that upset over his aunt and uncle. It's the same with they destroy Leia's entire planet. And it's just it's not that big a deal. The next scene, she's good. She's fine, And in the book, they basically go into that with a little bit more depth. And I don't know when I think it's maybe 2015 or 16 that this thing came out. Really good book. It's targeted at young adults. The other three in that series are not very good, but that first one is excellent and fills in a lot of the gaps on some of the things that just seem like, why is that not a bigger deal in the movie? And I think some of those things are just a product of the time that the movie came out. It was just not the focus of that film. It wasn't what it was trying to do. And so I give it a pass on a lot of that stuff. But I do recognize that by today's standards, you've got to do more than just make a sour face when somebody destroys your planet. And you got to be more upset about your aunt and uncle who have literally been your mom and dad for your entire life than you are about this hermit you just met.
You see their charred bodies and it's like, oh man, sad day. All right, here we go.
Okay. I am going to pull up the list that I shared with you all and just give everyone who may or may not be listening a preview into what we're going to be doing next week. So next week, we're going to be just discussing the Clone Wars cartoon, and that's going to be our focus for the next 20 plus weeks. And for this first week, we are going to be watching episodes 216, Cat and Mouse, 116, Hidden Enemy, and then the Clone Wars movie. and that will take us through the Battle of Christophsis arc and give us a good introduction into what we have in store going forward. Again, we're watching this chronologically by arc. And so we only have one arc because it includes the movie. It lengthens the amount of time of that arc. I think it's the longest arc of the, at least as far as screen time is concerned, of the entire series. But that's where we'll start. We'll talk about that next week. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you want to contact us, you can email StarWarsBrothersPodcast@gmail.com. And if we actually get an email from that before our next episode, I'll probably read it on the episodes. If you want to be on a podcast that has zero notoriety, send me an email. And you know, I mean, within reason, you'll probably make an appearance on the next show. So you can tell us how how bad our opinions are, because I know ranking Star Wars films is probably a good way to lose a lot of people at the beginning. But maybe since you have the chance now to express your own views if you happen to don't want to do that. So I kind of doubt, guys, that we're actually going to have anybody that listens to this and has time to send me an email before next week. But you never know. So I'm going to throw it out there. You can email me if you want to. And thanks for listening.
Your support is well seen.
And with that statement right there, we just lost whatever viewer or listener we had.